23 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, Pat Kerwin. He's coming on at 8 o'clock. Normally comes on 8:30-ish. He's got a scheduled conflict. We're moving Pat up today. He'll do the half hour from 8 to 8:30. Mike Masala will be on right before that, about an hour from now, to talk Dolphins. Right now, it is a pleasure to welcome back to the show the voice of college football, as far as we're concerned. It is one Bill King, Nashville Sports Radio. Follow him on Twitter at Bill is King. Bill, it is David and Mark. It has been too long. We hope you and your family are well. How are you?
Yeah, guys. Good morning. Good to be with you.
Well, Bill, they exercised the demons yesterday. I thought that going into the game, I just thought that, not just the players, the coaches, the entire Georgia fan base was so nervous about losing to Alabama again, but they exercised their demons despite Stetson Bennett at quarterback.
Yeah, guys, had a slight feeling that Alabama would win this game again. I will admit it. But I did think that Alabama would have to do it taking Georgia's best punch. And Georgia's best punch was good enough to win. And that's the outcome. And I talk about this on the show. I remember back in the early 90s, before the 93 season, people always talked about Bobby Bowden couldn't win the big one. I remember people talked about Dr. Tom at Nebraska before the 94-95 season. Couldn't win the big one. And I'm not comparing Kirby or anything. I'm just saying I remember going through this, and coaches getting it done finally, and this is Kirby's time.
Well, and also, Bill, do you think that this is the beginning of Georgia becoming the program that you and many others have thought, there's really no reason that they can't be part of college football royalty? They've always thought they were going to be, or that they were, but now, Bill, is this, as famously as Nick said when he won the first, this is not the end, this is a beginning. Do you think this is more of a beginning than an end for Georgia?
Well, the way they bring in players, they've got that. They've got the resources. They've got the coaching, we think, because they just won one with this staff. And I think they can become royalty. I think they've already been royalty. It's just they don't have that final W that they just obtained last night. But they've always had everything. That 2012 team that came down to basically the last play in the Alabama SEC championship game, that team was good enough to win it all. A couple of years ago in the national championship game, they figured they had that thing won, went to overtime, lost on a long second and 26 play. They've been good enough many times in the past. They just now figured it out to finish it.
At the end of the day, though, they reached a new level with Kirby. And I thought, Kirby thanking Alabama in his postgame wasn't just about that team, but was about what he learned and what he was able to convince Georgia they had to ultimately do to be on Alabama's level. I think it's a message, and Bill, I don't know about you, but it's a message to all the other, whether it's SEC programs, whether it's Big Ten programs, whether it's a future Big 12 program, that if you don't have it from the top down, meaning the president on down, it's really difficult to win that last game.
No question. Yeah, you gotta be lined up right. You can't just. Well, we've seen a few teams. The Miami teams of the early 2000s, Larry Coker, were not well coached, but they had so much talent it didn't matter. That's very rare. You got to be lined up from the top down. Your head coach, the assistant coaches, the recruiting, the development, your strength and conditioning guy is incredibly important. He may be as important as anybody, but the head coach in the whole procedure, you got to have all that lined up to be able to do what they just did.
Bill King, the voice of college football, Nashville Sports Radio. Follow him on Twitter at Bill is King. That's Bill is King. The story that for right now may be a little underreported nationally is the 48 hours before the game. where apparently, Bill, not only did nothing happen, it may have been worse than that, that there's now apparently 3 clicks amongst the conference commissioners, and it looks as if we're going to have status quo for 4 more years when the expectation 6 months ago was we were going to have radical change. Your thoughts on keeping on for the sport of college football?
Now, you're talking about the playoff expansion?
Right.
Well, they're going to expand, guys. But here's what happened. When the Texas-Oklahoma story hit this summer, right after the Big 12 media days and during the SEC media days, all the other leagues outside of the SEC got into a big tizzy because they didn't feel like they were in the loop. They're all for expansion, and it was going to happen sooner than later. But what has happened is the Big Ten, with their lack of leadership and their lack of leadership with their commissioner, and the same with, at least prior, the Pac-12. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten, as we know, are married. And then the ACC, they basically are saying, we don't feel like we were in these meetings. And even though deep down we do want expansion because it's going to help us get more teams in, perhaps, we're not going to do it sooner than later. We're going to let this contract play out simply because it's basically, guys, so petty that it would be like you're at your first grade kickball game, your first year in elementary school, and you don't play the kickball game because you're not getting the rules you want. So you say, I'm not playing today. That's how petty this is, and that's what they're doing. But they are going to expand. And by the way, guys, it's not about fairness, getting more teams in. It's not about what's doing right. This is about the money, and they are going to expand. It just might not be as soon as we thought.
And, the part of this, Bill, that astonishes us is that the SEC's been really at the forefront of the expansion. And I don't know if it's the other conferences' fear that they're going to get 4, but they're going to get more money. So what is the ultimate holdup, in your estimation, other than just pettiness, of why we can't get this done?
There isn't. Yeah, there isn't another holdup. It's all about you guys are making decisions like Roy Kramer did and like Mike Slive did. We're not going to do this anymore. And unless we feel like we were part of it, we're not going to go as fast as you want to go. That's all this is, guys. It's incredibly petty. And you know what? I'm not an expansion guy, as you know, so it doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
But that's where we're at.
Bill, who's the next Georgia? And by that, I mean, this is Kirby coming in. Georgia was winning 9-10 games under Mark Richt. Yeah, the 2012 team, even the 2005 team, probably could have won a natty. But clearly, Kirby brought him to the next level. Now he's conquered, slayed the lion, the dragon, what have you. Is it Florida? Is it Tennessee? Is it A&M? Is it someone even you like from another conference? Is it the return of Miami or Florida State in the ACC? Who is it that you think is going to line things up and take the next 5 to 7 years and climb the mountain?
Well, if it's a coach who's done it before, if it's a place that has basically unlimited resources and they're not afraid to spend it, and it's a place where, geographically speaking, you can recruit incredible talent. And again, you go back to the resources, it's A&M. Now, again, getting there is one thing. Having everything in line is fantastic. You still have to do it. But if anybody is set up to do it, they're coming off right now the number 1 recruiting class in a class of 22. They're spending money like they're drunk sailors, and it's legal because we have no leadership. So if there is a next team, it's got to be A&M.
Well, Bill, you got to where I wanted to go to, because this is messy. NIL is messy. The transfer portal may be messier. David and I are both guys who thought the players should be getting something. We have no problem right now with the transfer portal. Like you said, there's no leadership. This is ugly because Mark Emmert wanted to make Congress do this instead of having any wherewithal to do it himself. We're a couple of years into this. What do you think so far, the transfer portal, and how long do you think it takes before, if there's any substantial change to how this is done?
Well, Congress isn't thinking about college football's transfer portal or name, image, likeness,
Right.
and getting all these states unified. That's not a thing. So I don't think we're anywhere near any uniformity there. And basically, it's just we have legalized the Wild West is what we've done. Now, I'll say this. Doing a show every day like you guys do and like I do, it's fantastic radio. It's unlimited content, but it's terrible for the sport. I mean, one minute you're sitting there, minding your own business. Next minute, Caleb Williams, who had a fantastic freshman year, is out of there. Stories like that, name, image, likeness, where there's no. The NCAA basically, guys, has said here the last couple of years, we quit. Just whatever you want to do, just do it. And so, guys, from a content standpoint, it's really good. From a health standpoint, it's terrible.
You think it gets fixed? Do you think legally, Bill, it can?
Probably not. It's not trending. It's not trending well. And again, one other note, guys. I see some of the national names say we need a commissioner. We don't need a commissioner. Number one, the SEC is never going to yield power to some ivory tower, bow tie wearing nerd. And guys, if we had a commissioner, you know what would have happened? A year ago, this guy would have announced, along with the Big Ten in the background, we're not playing football. You really think the SEC would ever yield to some guy in an Indianapolis ivory tower as the overlord to college football? Never. So, and I don't want a commissioner because that's the guy they would hire. And we would not have played football in 2020, which would have been an absolute scam. So, guys, not a lot of good answers for you here, but it's messy.
No doubt about it. If it wasn't for Greg Sankey, we wouldn't have had a 2020 college football season. There's no question about it. Bill, since you've got a show and you were generous with your time, we will let you go. All the best, not only on Nashville Sports Radio, but to you and your family. Hope your kid's doing great in college, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Bill King, the voice of college football, as he says, a voice on loan from God.
Used to listen to him. I think it was WLAC in Nashville. When I first moved there, I was the voice of the minor league hockey team in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm trying to make hockey go, and I turn on 1510 in like March. Well, I don't think it was March. It probably was before signing day.
So it was late January, maybe?
Late January, might have been December. I don't remember when I first tuned into it, but all I know is that he'd get calls of like, hey, Bill, yeah, that David Moulton, he's at Henderson. What do you think about it? Well, he'll tell you what, he's a sophomore. He runs a 4.6 40, but they say he's a good route runner, and right now he's considering Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. And I'm like, what in the hell is this?